The river Tisza tried to overtop the dikes 4 times in the last 11 years, but man was stronger so far in the Middle Tisza. Besides the success of the protection efforts, lessons had to be learned. So the water sector had to be prepared for a long-term flood protection, which was preceded by the floods of 1999, 2000 and 2006. The winter with a high amount of precipitation was followed by a not less precipitated spring. The multiple amount of average precipitation fell on the river basin, covering 157,000 square kilometers, and Zagyva sub-river basin, covering 5,600 square kilometers in this period. The news coming from the upper part of river basin implied the seriousness of the coming flood situation. At first, the attention was drawn to the river Zagyva, where all-day watching duty was ordered from the middle of May. At that time, the flood protection concerned area was 100 kilometers along the dikes, and 177 people was involved in the protection work. The Flood Protection Committee of Jász-Nagykun-Szolnok County was convened on the 17th of May. Because of the occurred serious flood situation along the river Zagyva, the Middle Tisza District Environment and Water Directorate proposed the opening the flood reservoir at Jásztelek. The proposal was submitted by the National Flood Protection Body, and later it had got the ministerial approval as well. A day before the opening, the third preparation level was ordered between Jászberény and Újszász. Just in order to be aware of the extreme situation, the highest water level was 650 centimeters at Jásztelek, and the current forecasted peak level is 650 centimeters plus minus 20 centimeters. The water flows into the flood reservoir at Jásztelek through a 40 to 50 meter wide slot. The charging of the reservoir takes about 3 days, and the storage capacity of the reservoir is 12 million cubic meters. The experts expected 40 centimeters water level decreasing from the opening of the reservoir. The inundated area is 20 square kilometers. If the impact of the opening is not sufficient, then we will propose the opening of the other emergency flood reservoir on the river Zagyva at Borsóhalom. And a few hours later it happened. The emergency flood reservoir at Borsóhalom was opened, and it had an immediate effect on the flood wave. The current peak level didn't exceed the former maximum level, 650 centimeters. The positive effect of the reservoir opening slowed down the measure of the flooding at Jásztelek. When the flood wave exceeded the former maximum discharge in this section, the peak level did not reach the former maximum. However, the soaking of the dikes is causing more and more serious problems. The pumping stations are working with full capacity. Some of the civil properties on the protected side near the dike are also endangered. The municipalities of Jász-Dózsa, Jász-Felső-Szentgyörgy, Jász-Alsó-Szentgyörgy, Jászberény, Jásztelek, Szászberek required more sandbag and protecting plastic foil from the Water Directorate. Meanwhile, the attention was switched to the river Tisza from the river Zagyva. In the upper part of the Tisza, the flooding situation is getting worse and worse because of the impact of the endless rainfall. The experts forecasted the peak level at the gauging station Szolnok between 810 and 850 centimeters. The flood protection preparation level is raised to the second level of the Lake Tisza on the 24th of May. The river is peaking at Tokaj, while the water flow is reaching the gardens on the floodplain at Szolnok. Flood protection works are set back by the damage of the Alcsi pumping station. Thieves have stolen the closing gate of the delivery pipe, but they haven't got far with it, thanks to the alertness of the dike keepers and the police. The suspected person was taken into custody yesterday, and we initiated his prior arrest today. The stolen objects were found in one family member's garden of the arrested. Of course, the arrested is still denying the accusation. Because of the crime, setting of the water level at the Alcsi Oxbow could be started only 2 days delay, while the protection against inland waters is going without problems in the field. Pumping stations are working in each protection section along the Middle Tisza, The middle Tisza is divided into 10 flood protection sections, just like the pumping station of Sárkányfok. At the same time, the water level is increasing on the other side of the dike. The third preparation level is declared on the 28th of May at Szolnok. The water level is 800 centimeters at the gauging station in Szolnok at noon. The experts expected the peaking level at Szolnok between 840 to 870 centimeters. The water police visits and checks the unprotected resort line in the floodplain daily. Government declared emergency alert for 7 settlements along the river Zagyva and the 2 flood reservoirs, Jásztelek, Borsóhalom. The flood reservoirs are temporarily closed after 2 weeks of its opening to prepare for the usage of the left storage capacity in case of another flood wave. And it was a wise decision because experts forecasted a bigger flood wave reaching the section in the first days of June. On the 2nd of June, the flood reservoirs are opened again, what is quite unusual, opening the reservoirs 2 times during one flood protection period. But going back to the Tisza, which is still on the headline. Protection workings had been started near Rákóczi-falva, where the old dike was pulled down and removed farther to give more space to the flooded river. The inundated area, which is part of the floodplain, is the so-called bivajtó. After removing the dike at bivajtó, the water level was expected to decrease 9 to 15 centimeters between Tiszapüspöki and Vezseny, according to the modeling. It has an enormous effect on the peak level in Szolnok. The round dike around the Tisza-liget was the most critical point of the protection line in Szolnok during the last floods. The dike was totally wrapped by plastic foil with the help of divers. The round dike is in a good condition, preventing measures had taken only 2 parts of it. At the same time, one section of the dike was being strengthened by sandbags along the river Zagyva in Szolnok between Várkonyi Square and Ispán Boulevard. Water experts decided to implement the strengthening of the dike due to the last flood observation when the dike was soaking. So-called counter-pressure basins were built at the bank of river Zagyva at the end of Városmajor Street. In this part of the bank, the preventive measures had taken also according to the former floods experience. However, the workers couldn't handle the infiltrated water through the dike between Újszász and Zagyvarékos, where the water flowed through the public road, where the traffic restriction was proclaimed. The cemetery of Zagyvarékos is underwater and the bridge had to be closed too. A number of tailing pits and animal keeper ranches were flooded in the Jászság region. Therefore, the quality of the water is also a threat besides the increasing water level. Meanwhile, the flood events along the Tisza sped up. According to the decision of the Governmental Coordination Committee, the opening of the flood reservoir at Tiszarov had been started on the 10th of June at 17 hours. It was the first time that this flood reservoir was under operation in a real flood situation. 1.5 years ago, no one expected that the reservoir will be under operation that soon. The territory of the reservoir is 24 square kilometers and the storage capacity is about 97 million cubic meters water. According to the modeling, the charging of the reservoir takes about 3 to 4 days. However, the full charging of the reservoir could not happen because the gates were closed in the evening on the 13th. The territory of the reservoir was inundated by 56 million cubic meters water and it still has a free capacity of 40 million cubic meters. The closing of the reservoir was needed because more precipitation were predicted on the river basin, which would have started another flood wave on the Tisza. Meanwhile, the strengthening of the dike at Tisza promenade in Szolnok was finished. The preparation level was 950 centimeters. 72,000 sandbags were built in for the strengthening of the dike. Along the promenade, the infiltrated water has appeared, but other phenomena of the flood wasn't perceived on the protection structures. Inhabitants of the high-rank settlements south from Szolnok are also involved in the protection work. The bus stop in Vezseny and the nearest houses are almost reached by the water. The condition of the dikes needs urgent protection measures in some places. For example, in above Tisza in two sites where the dike was strengthened by ribs and by injection procedure. $100,000 sandbags were built in to strengthen the sow dike, which has softened by the continuous soaking. Can you imagine if the dike soaks and the slope could slip? This can lead to serious problems. Not so far from here, another part of the dike needed also strengthening. However, the problem was different. Soaking of the off-water side slope was noticed in autumn. Cement grout is pushed into the soil, which fills up the cracks under pressure, those cracks that causes the others on the surface. The ministerial commissioner, who was also in the field, spoke with great appreciation about the works done so far. László Kótai emphasized, "The water directorate helped the municipalities in the critical time, so the actual flood didn't cause crucial problems along the Middle Tisza, where the river has reached its peak in Szolnok that night. In fact, everything happens according to the forecast. The water level was 954 centimeters for hours. According to the National Flood Protection Body, the second biggest load hits the dike along the Middle Tisza. A flood dwelling is being stopped in the boundary of Szolnok near the Millér Water Museum. The territory, which is lit at night, has a special structure of geology. Otherwise, there was no interruption in the flow regime in Szolnok. By the cleaning of the so-called 100 legs bridge, it successfully enhanced the useful cross-section of the river. The main riverbed of the Tisza is quite narrow at Szolnok. If we didn't have that size of bridge section, it would mean more meters growth. Water level of the Tisza decreased 6 centimeters during a day, faster than it was expected. Accompanying events still require alertness. Basements of the several properties close to the river stand in water. The renewed sustaining wall at Gutenberg Square passed the test, but it doesn't mean the natural filtration is eliminated. According to the Directorate's promise, new trees will be planted. 2 days after the peaking in Szolnok, the Water Directorate is in charge in the length of 630 kilometers on the river and 25,000 hectares against the inland waters. The flood level is decreasing consistently. The pulling down of the heightening and the strengthening of the dike had been started on the 21st of June along the Tisza and the Zagyva. Original conditions are restored in the settled areas at first. This continuous decrease of the water level allows the starting of damming of the river at the Kisköre barrage. Usual daily press conferences are ended on the 22nd of June. The Water Directorate's workers started the discharge of the flood reservoir at Tisarov with special attention of the quality of the water. The water level has been decreased under 800 centimeters at Szolnok on the 28th of June. Those who were involved in this flood protection period passed the test. The example of Miskolc and Edelin city draw the attention of the country concerning the consequences of flood and the importance of organized flood protection management. 2010 will be surely memorable for the settlements along the Tisza, just like the 3 former extreme floods. According to the statistical data, better efficiency was reached than it was expected by the implementation of Tisarov Reservoir and Onbivajtó, the frame of the updated Vásárhelyi plan. Experts claimed that the mentioned flood protection construction lived up to the expectations. The other lesson of flooding the reservoir at Tisarov is also positive. The farmers concerned accepted the decisions of leaving the reservoir's area and cooperated with the water experts. Still urgent tasks are waiting to be solved along the river. We can only hope the people estimate the seriousness of the situation and people living in the Tisza Valley can feel completely safe in long terms regardless the caprice of the river.